Welcome back to the channel, everybody. Hopefully you all are doing well. Thanks for tuning in today. We're back on the North Texas Beltline and we are running the West Greenville local. We have talked about this quite a bit in previous episodes, just that it's upcoming and that we're going to be looking at it. Fortunately, all the yard work has already been done. We have our train is currently pre-blocked for the most part. We will see later a situation where we actually had a few cars out of order, but hey, everything on the railroad is a constant process of refinement and improvement. So get everything ironed out, but I do believe it was after filming all of this footage that I did finally kind of get everything in order in a way that really makes a lot of sense. But this is by far the most difficult job to operate on the North Texas Beltline. It's not difficult in the sense that it's like a huge puzzle necessarily all the time. It just, there's not always a ton of track to work with, and there's a lot of industries that you might end up working. You're not necessarily going to work all of them every time. But it's just a lot that you have to kind of think about, plan ahead for, and it could be very different every single time you run it. So that's kind of what makes it hard. Not so much that the track work is necessarily difficult, but you do have to enter into the siding here in Greenville, and then you have to pull off to the right. And after making this trip, this is usually where we cut the train so we can start working the spur just off here to the left. There are 2 industries on that spur, but it's technically 3 locations for spotting cars because one industry has 2 spots. Not like individual spots, but just locations in general. But typically the way we work this is we go ahead and we back up and we grab all of our pickups, get those out of the way, and then kind of get everything sorted so that we can shove them back, or shove our holds back, and then of course our setouts, we put those back as well. So here we are just slowly backing up and collecting some steel coal cars. We've got, of course, some box cars, and then we've got to get to the little paper mill there in the back and get those box cars as well. And here we are grabbing those. There is one industry over here in West Greenville that you don't see us work today. Actually, there's 2. There's a scrapyard that we don't work, and there is also a transload facility that you'll see in a little bit that we don't have any work for. So just further proof that you're not always going to work every single industry every single time. So we're going to speed up from here on out just to kind of get through things a little bit quicker, just because they're pretty repetitive. But in general, what you're going to see is we're going to start getting things sorted. So we have to put our setouts behind our holds, and we have to do it by spur or by car spot. So since there's 3 locations on the spur where you can drop cars, we kind of have to do it in sections. So we're going to do some of that work, get everything situated like we like, and then we'll go ahead and be ready to shove back. The goal on working this spur is to work it first and to just get everything situated where you can just make one nice shove all the way back on the spur. And then as you're pulling out of the spur, you're able to just disconnect and leave all your cars in their respective places on your way out. So this is that process of sorting. So in the back, we have a paper mill, then we have a cannery. The cannery has a track specifically for taking in steel loads, and then it has a track that's closer to the switch here where it actually like loads out box cars with different canned goods. It can be food, it can be drinks, you know. Never really specified exactly what they're canning, but they are canning a lot of different things, so makes for some variation. I don't think that we ever get any covered hoppers here to the cannery. I think it really just assumed that all of the actual goods to be canned are shipped in by truck, which, you know, is completely understandable, especially if they happen to be perishables. All right, now that we have everything in order, we're just shoving back, and here you see the end of our cut coming to the end of the track here behind the paper mill. So we will stop him here, and then we will disconnect from each piece along the way and make our way out. Notice that we are taking that covered hopper with us. The reason that he was in the front of the train but not to be set out on the spur is because he actually goes at the back of our train, because now we're going to complete our runaround and we have to take a shove, and so we need him on this end of the train here because he's going to be the first car getting set out at the next industry. So this is why the Kingston yard blocks this train for us, because when we get down here, you'll see there's not a lot of good track work to work with, and so we have to have things pre-blocked. All right, so we're going to cut him off here, just kind of set him to the side. That is the the Santa Fe interchange. We're not running the Santa Fe interchange today, so we can use that track if we need to. And then we have some covered hoppers to pick up here at the fertilizer plant we got to grab. So typically we'll come in, we'll get our one hold, we'll get him out of the way, or pickup. Kind of depends on the mood of the conductor. And then once we get that car out of the way, we go ahead and we reconnect to our set out and then shove the set out and any holds back onto the spur. Technically, the place that we're parking the CRDX car is actually another industry. It's like City Chemical, I believe it's called. So usually receives tank cars. The only reason we could use its space today is because it was empty. Technically, if it was empty, you would have to find a different location to do these moves, which of course is doable, but you just got to be flexible. All right, now that we've reconnected, we'll go ahead and pull forward and then get ready to shove him back. The Santa Fe hopper and the hopper in front of it, I forget what the marks were on that one. They're both going to be set out here. So one hold, one set out, and one pickup. Not a bad day. All in all, this job takes about 2 hours. That does not count the time it takes to build it or break it down or block it. That is only the time it takes to leave Kingston Yard and then the time to get back. So if we were doing a multiplayer session, this is absolutely a train where I would send someone and probably not hear from them for a long, long time. So a lot would happen. When you get into West Greenville, you're kind of on your own section of the railroad, so you don't have to worry about any meets or anything, with one exception, and that is the Santa Fe interchange. So if I needed to pull the Santa Fe interchange, I would just radio into this crew and tell it to, get out of the way. So we're going to come back to the spot where we run around. We don't actually run around a second time, just have to pass through. You can see the scrapyard there in the foreground. Once we get back out on the siding, the other industries we have to work are off to the right of this frame. We've got the big grain elevator, and we've got an electrical facility, and that makes like electronics pieces, and then we like chips and stuff, and then we have a food plant here, usually taking in like potatoes and things to work as well. So quite a bit of activity. This is another situation where having your train pre-blocked is very helpful. This is that situation where the cars were not properly blocked, so we had to do some fancy maneuvering. It was most certainly because of this situation right here is the reason that I went ahead and formalized my list of the blocking order for this train. And now that we're getting here to the switch, our next move is to go ahead and get ready to work the electrical plant and the food plant. So we did realize here that we needed to get behind this reefer, so we're going to go ahead and back up real quick and set the reefer out on the siding so we can get around him. And then the box car and the bulkhead car right in front of it there are both set outs for the electrical plant. So we're going to go ahead and get those ready to be delivered. Those have to go behind the reefer because that industry is behind the food plant in the spur. Now, we do sometimes ship in loaded or empty reefers to the food plant. It could be bringing in like potatoes to be shipped out as french fries, so it could come in loaded and leave loaded. Sometimes it'll just come in loaded to be, delivering some perishables, and sometimes it'll just leave loaded, just depends. And then also the plant does make some types of foods that don't have to be put back in reefers, so sometimes we'll just have normal boxcars come in as well and get loaded and shipped out. I don't do schedules on the North Texas Beltline, so I don't have any custom loads, so your switch lists don't actually tell you that you necessarily are picking up potatoes or fries or anything like that, or bread, but it just tells you if it's loaded or not, and that's just kind of how we do business. So here we're going to go ahead, and since these are 3 set-outs, we're going to kind of set them off to the side on the lead to the grain elevator, and that's because, just like previously, we need to go pull this entire spur and get all of these cars out of the way, get them in front of our set-outs. So we're going to go grab our pickups. Now, to be fair, you don't always pick up every car, so you have to pay attention to your holds and make sure you get those in the right order, because you always want your set-outs to go in the back at their respective industries. So if we were to have a hold for Elmira Electrical right here, which is you're looking on the left, then that would need to go in front of our set-outs, but behind any of our other set-outs or holds from the food plant, because the food plant is in front of it on the spur. So quite a bit of confusing work at times. This is where it gets tough. It's not that the track work is difficult, it's just that getting everything in order can be difficult, especially when multiple industries are sharing the same track. So now that we have gotten everything in order, we're going to go ahead and reconnect to our setouts. And that would be the setouts for the food mill, because once again, those have to be in front of any holds for the electrical plant. And then we'll go get the holds for the electrical plant, and we will put those in front of the setouts for the electrical plant. So the order is going to be holds for the food plant, setouts for the food plant, holds for the electrical plant, and setouts for the electrical plant, in that order, facing away from the camera. So the cars that are closest to the camera are the ones for the food mill, and the ones that will be at the back of this frame are the ones for the electrical plant. Now, on the fictional representation of the North Texas Beltline, although, I mean, actually the North Texas Beltline in general is fictional, but what I mean is on the layout version, I did make completely fake industries here in Greenville. There are not any, I didn't model any actual industries. On the full-size version of the North Texas Beltline that I'm working on, I'm actually using the actual industries for Greenville, including the, as best as I can, the car loads and, you know, flows and all that stuff. I tried to model them as accurately as possible. Not because I feel like that's important, but just because I wanted to do it. I wanted to do something that I'd never done before. So it's always good to push yourself a bit. Here you're seeing me kind of kick cars a little bit. I don't like getting bogged down with switching, running long cuts back. So sometimes you'll see me just kind of cut loose and kick a few cars and see what happens. I especially do that when I don't have to worry about cars rolling on forever downhill. So now it's time to back up, reconnect to our holds and our setouts, and then finally get all of this mess out of the way so that we can start working the grain elevator, which you see on the right. I always save the grain elevator for last. Technically, you don't have to do that, but I will say that if you're running this job in one of my multiplayer sessions, your train would already be pre-blocked for you according to that, and so you'd kind of be stuck with doing it. All right, now after finally making all of our setouts at Elmira Electrical and the food mill, we're ready to start working the grain elevator. So here we are backing up to pull a track. Typically, we just pull the whole track, typically, and then any cars we have to either set out, pick up, or hold, we tend to get those sorted out here on the lead back to the food plant. We have plenty of track space there to do everything that we need to do. It's funny, I have this running in fast speed, you know, and it makes me realize just how much time I spend switching when I'm doing it in normal speed, just because, I mean, that was the equivalent of probably a whole minute and a half right there. Just kind of sitting there waiting. It is going to be kind of hard to keep up with everything that goes on here, working the grain elevator, but more or less, it's kind of the same story as before with a little bit of an exception. This time, you don't really have to get the holds behind the setouts because there's so many cars that typically go to this industry every time this train is run that when you run the train the next time, it doesn't necessarily pick them up in any sort of real order. And so, you know, the car you're setting out may actually be one of the first pickups next time, and you have, of course, no way of knowing. So really what it comes down to is I at least go ahead and get all the pickups out of the way first, and then any holds or setouts, I just kind of shove all those back there on whichever track they go on, and then I pull the second track and kind of do the same thing. So here I realized I would rather have my cars on the other track, so all we did there was just switch those two hoppers, which are setouts, I believe. We just switch them on to the lead so we can get all of our pickups out of the way here. So pickups are going to go on the left, and then setouts are already on the right, and then we'll shove our holds back there, and then we'll push the whole cut all the way back. As time consuming as this job is, it is definitely one of my favorites to run. I will say that my absolute favorite jobs to run are the manifest trains that go all the way across the layout. Those are absolutely my favorite ones to run. I built those specifically because I wanted to have those kind of trains run. That's exactly the reason why I have 3 yards on the layout, is because I wanted to have a train go from yard A to B, drop a few cars off, pick up a few cars, and go to C. And then, of course, having one do the same thing backwards. But here, this is definitely my next favorite job because it's just challenging and it's got a lot of activity, a lot of things to do. And once again, it's, you know, it's 2 hours, not even counting all the switching. So that is a very, very good chunk of time in normal speed. If I was doing like realistic switching, it'd probably take 3 hours just because I would keep my speeds lower. All right, now we're finally pulling out the other track. Kind of the same deal. We just want to get everything in order. And so we do just that. And once we have everything in order, we will shove it back. And then after working the grain elevator, we go ahead and pull our entire cut of cars out that we're taking with us. So this will be our last shove here as we shove everything in place. And then we'll disconnect, go grab our pickups, and go reconnect to our train, and then call the dispatcher to get ready to head back to Kingston. If it was a multiplayer session, you know, we would have been able to see some other trains and stuff run by. But this was just me doing single player, so maybe next time. We used to run multiplayer on this one, but then it just got too laggy and glitchy, and it was real sad. I do like this SD40. I like the whistle on it, or the horn rather, sounds good. So I do like to use this one a lot for that reason. All that's left for us here is to come into Kingston Yard, which we are currently doing now by taking the siding in Kingston and then entering the yard lead. I'm not going to show the footage today of us breaking the train down. That is Kingston Yard's responsibility. So I'll have another video from Kingston Yard a little bit later, I believe. I'll have to double check on that actually. But if I do, then of course we might show some of that process breaking it down. But pretty much we just come in on track 0, and if we want to, if one of the RD tracks are open, we can always go park the train on one of the RD tracks. But sometimes, you know, if the yard crew's ready for it right then, we'll just go ahead and cut it on track 0, get out of the way, and let the yard crew get to work while we go put this locomotive back over on the fuel rack. So now that you've made it this far, if you have, I appreciate it. Thanks for watching. Thanks for joining in. Please stay tuned for more videos. My next one coming out will either be a JMRI video or a video on the Coxswain sub. So I'm really excited for both. My next JMRI video is going to be about how to do it with multiple people, like how to basically interchange from your 2 layouts. So if you're interested in JMRI and you know some other people who are, that would be a great video to check out just to see a way that I kind of figured out to help make it where you can coordinate your layouts between your friends. So thanks again. We'll see you guys next time. Stay tuned, and we'll catch you later.